let's go ahead and start with our prayer before study. Christ, my Lord, the giver of light and wisdom, who opened the eyes of the blind man and transformed the fishermen into wise heralds and teachers of the gospel through the coming of the Holy Spirit, shine also in my mind the light of the grace of the Holy Spirit. Grant me discernment, understanding, and wisdom and learning. Enable me to complete my assignments and to abound in every good work, for to you I give honor and glory. Amen. Most blessed Lord, send the grace of your Holy Spirit on me to strengthen me, that I may learn well the subject I am about to study, and by it become a better person, for your glory, the comfort of my family, and the benefit of your church and our nation. Amen. All right. I want to trade papers with you guys, and I need to talk a little bit about these imitations. First of all, let me find, okay. There we go. Let's see what I've got for you. Okay, Elliot, ignore the circles, all right? Actually, can I keep those for a minute? I want to use these. I have, rewrite for me? Okay, well, I've got your original, and Gus, do you have a rewrite for me? And I've got your original, so I'm just going to keep your original. Could you get that from her? Awesome. Okay, we had some issues with the imitation, and we're just going to decide it's my fault. Everybody's off the hook, because I feel like if many people didn't do what I intended, it means I didn't explain it well enough. So there's nobody's in trouble. Nobody has to redo them. I am going to give you some more of them to work on this week, but I'm going to use some of the ones you did as examples. I'm not going to say who wrote them. I'm just randomly looking. If it's yours, it doesn't mean, oh, mine was the worst and that's why she took. No, it doesn't. It's the one my eye fell on. Okay. So does anybody have? Oh, actually, Elliot wrote the original at the top. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to get up and stand next to my chair. All right, here was the original. We won't do all of these, but we'll do a couple of them, okay? Most people enjoy chocolate, semicolon. However, comma, my daughter prefers other kinds of treats. Okay, it's kind of a long sentence. Maybe that was the problem. We started out with something a little longer than I should have. All right. Okay, I'm looking at. Okay, the first problem is the original sentence has however. And I really wanted you all to use however, because however is the only one that takes a semicolon and a comma. You cannot write this sentence and use although or because. Well, one of the reasons I wanted to give you this sentence is to show you how to use a semicolon. It's a semicolon, however, comma. That's a thing. So if you used however in your sentence, but you didn't put a semicolon and a comma, you can't do that. And you can't use though or although or any of those. Then it's not parallel because it doesn't have the same punctuation. All right. So an undisclosed person wrote, cats are good pets for the first part. All right. Let's look at the original. Most people enjoy chocolate. What's the verb in that section? Enjoy. Enjoy. Who enjoys?
People.
So, subject, noun. Enjoy what?
Chocolate.
Direct object. And what kind of people or how many people? Most. Adjective. I need adjective, noun, verb, direct object. Or it's not the same structure. Now look here. We have cats. Great. People. There's no adjective. Are. Does are ever take a direct object? Can you are something? I'm going to go are my clothes later after you guys leave. No. It's a linking verb. Therefore, you can't have a direct object. And we have a direct object with an adjective with it, but that direct object doesn't have an adjective with it. See, that's what we're looking for. That's what we're imitating. We don't care about chocolate. We only care about adjective, noun, verb, direct object. Right? This is like top secret. Okay, let me find a actually those were pretty good. Oh, okay. So this is the same one. It says houseplants are nice. It's got the same problem. Not quite. Houseplants are. The only problem is it's a direct object. And then it was though, which I already said we have to do. However, I forget to water them. That's the second part. What do we have? What's the verb in the second part? Prefers. Who prefers? Daughter. Subject, noun. Prefers what?
Treats.
No.
Oh, yeah, that's the object.
Prefers what? You're right. This is a prepositional phrase.
Yeah.
What's left? Kinds. Kinds is the direct object. What kind of kinds? Other kinds. Adjective. Whose daughter, my daughter. This is a possessive pronoun. If you put any adjective here, I would be fine with that. Okay? Because a possessive pronoun is kind of adjective. So look at this. I, subject, forget. We're missing the my or the adjective. To water. I forget what? Forget to water. Does anybody know what that is when we put to plus a verb? To run, to jump, to sing, to laugh. No. Is it that thing is called, it has a special name. To sit, to stand, to eat, to play. It's called an infinitive. That's an infinitive, which acts like a noun. And then it has its own object. Point being, even if you don't follow all of that, you're going to have to look at the grammar of the original and follow the grammar, not the idea. That's not the kind of imitation this is, right? I want you to imitate the structure. So if you do it perfectly, you should have exactly the same number of words as the original. Now, there are times when you can't change a word, like the however. This is okay. Let's look at one more example. Again, I'm not berating you. I'm just assuming I didn't really explain it well. Okay. let's look at the trying to decide which one I want to look at. Everybody did a pretty good job with the year consists of 4 seasons. That seemed to be. Let's look at the winter can be beautiful, but frustrating. And I believe it should have a semicolon. Summer can be joyful but busy. I like this sentence. This is a very pleasing sounding sentence to our ears, right? So let's take a look at this one. Here's, again, it's just, don't worry if it's yours. Winter can be dull. All right. What's the problem with that? Winter can be dull for the first half. What are we missing? The other what?
Like it's beautiful and interesting.
The other adjective. We need adjective, conjunction, adjective at the end of each of these. Keeping the can be is fine, or is, or whatever. That would be fine, just a be verb. And in the second half says, summer can bring fun activities. Okay, first of all, if we use a semicolon, we can't use but. And summer can bring many fun activities. Is now a summer can bring what? Can bring activities. It's got a direct object. It's not 2 adjectives describing it anymore. Do you see the problem? It's a fine sentence except for the semicolon and but it doesn't follow the original anymore. How about this one's a little. Snow is fun, but is cold. See, there's an extra. Snow is fun, but is cold. No, snow is fun, but cold. That follows the original. Mud is fun, but it is messy. Mud is fun, but messy. Do you guys see? Am I explaining it okay now? So what we're asking ourselves is what is the structure? When I look at this sentence, I see 2 sentences joined by a semicolon. I see something described with 2 adjectives. I see something else described with 2 adjectives. And if I want to be really fancy about it, I see that the adjectives in each case are opposites. So I might say something like, teaching is rewarding but time-consuming. Learning is beneficial but difficult. And this would be exactly the same as the original. So I started, some of you, I started circling ones, and then I saw, I don't think most people understand what I wanted them to do. So I thought we're just going to just like cancel, reboot, and try another one. So I brought some more, and I think they're easier. And they're all working on how to use commas, which makes them helpful as well. Here, I'm going to give one to you guys, and then I think we're going to have extras. If they get around to you, Riley, you can just put extras on that chair. Why don't you take one, and then let's just look at the first one. This is also going to be helpful because it has instructions underneath the sentence. I will wait till everybody gets theirs, and then I will show you what I mean. So and there's only 4 of them instead of 5. I rang the bell and pounded on the door, but no one answered. And then underneath it says guideline. Use a comma before a coordinator. A word like and, but, yet, or, nor, for, or so. That links 2 main clauses. Do not use a comma before a coordinator that links 2 words or phrases. And we have examples of both of those. So let's take a look at what we have. Let me write it out so we can write above it. I rang the bell and pounded on the door, comma, but no one answered. Okay. I have a comma right here. And our guideline says, use a comma before a coordinator that links 2 main clauses. So let's test this out. I rang the bell and pounded on the door. Does that make a complete sentence? No one answered. Does that make a complete sentence? Yeah, no one answered. It's got a subject and a verb. And they've joined them together with a coordinator or a conjunction with a comma. So that's the first thing we're going to have to do. Our imitation is going to have 2 complete sentences, and they're going to be joined with a comma and one of those coordinators, and, but, nor, for, yet, so. Now, let's take a look at each of the 2 parts. The second part is really, really short and easy. No one is really one word. I'm just going to give you that, all right? So what I need is a subject and a verb. That's all I'm going to need there, a subject and a verb. That I feel like we'll be able to come up with a subject and a verb. So let's take a look at this one. What do we have? What is the verb in the first part, the first complete clause? Rang. Is there another verb?
Yep.
What is the other verb? Pounded. Who rang and pounded? I. This is the subject. In this case, it's a pronoun, but I wouldn't care if you just used a noun, right? It doesn't have to be I, we, whatever. If you want to be really super exact, you could pick another pronoun, which are I, you, he, she, it, we, or they. So, I rang and pounded. Rang what?
Bell.
Bell. So what is Bell's job in this sentence? It's direct object. And it's got an article adjective, or the, or and, one of those, okay. And then I've got a joiner, I've got a conjunction, and pounded. Okay, pounded what?
Door.
The door. But is door the direct object?
No,
Why not?
because it's in a prepositional.
It's a prepositional phrase. I have a prepositional phrase. I have a preposition and the object of the preposition in an article. So my new sentence, I know this, oh my gosh, this looks so hard. No, it's not. First of all, I've examined what I got going here. And by the way, here's our second example. 2 words or phrases, you don't use a comma. I don't want a comma here. I rang the bell, comma, and pounded on the door. No. So, I want you to tell me, give me a subject, any subject. You can make it a pronoun, you can make it just a noun. Give me a subject. Bob. I want to know the 2 things Bob did. Bob blanked and blanked. This is actually fun once you get into it.
sowed.
He sowed?
He sowed a corn.
Okay. Like sowing seed?
Yeah.
He sowed and what? Because he has to do two things here. He blank and blank. Bob sowed and
Harvested.
harvested. I can tell we live in farm country. Okay. Bob sowed. Okay, I need a direct object. Bob sowed wheat. Now, we can't really say the wheat. I guess we could. You know what? So I'm going to be exact. Bob sowed the wheat and harvested. Okay, but we can't say a direct object. We need to say a prepositional phrase, a three-word preposition. Harvested.
In the fall.
Oh, that's exactly what I was thinking. And harvested in the fall. This is exactly like the original. It's got everything. And then we have a comma. And then we need a joiner. Now, our joiner that we choose affects what we say next, because but usually means something sort of the opposite, right? And means they go together. So means this happened and it made something else happen. So maybe we should think about just some sort of related subject and verb. It needs to relate to Bob in some. It needs to relate to this in some way, but I don't care how it relates.
And Tim helped.
Oh, and Tim helped. We could say, so everyone ate. Yet, oh, this is depressing, nothing grew. That would be awful. See, I can make this happy or sad. You have the power. It's all up to you, whether these are all depressing or not. All right, does this make sense, what we did? So it's not that I care about anyone pounding on doors or anything like that. What I care about is we have a double verb with a prepositional phrase, and this one has a direct object and a comma and then a connecting word. Now, we have three other uses of commas, and in each case it talks about the use of commas. I would like you to do 3 of each of these for a total of 12 sentences. This is your entire writing assignment for this week. It might take a little bit of thinking. And at first, when I was reading your sentences you gave me, I thought, oh, they just didn't even think about it. I thought, no, they didn't understand. They didn't understand what we were going for. So do you all feel like you understand? Okay, because I'll do more if you want, but all right, I don't want to overdo it. All right, that's what we're doing for next week. See how much, if you can get exactly the same number of words every time. All right. Okie dokes, I have an artist for you. And these are extras of these. These I will give you. I'll put these out in front because I'm going to give them to you later. This artist's name is Peter Bruegel. Bruegel. It's spelled B-R-E-U. G-E-L, Bruegel. I'm going to show you some Peter Bruegel paintings, and then I want you to tell me what Peter Bruegel likes. Because there's something that he constantly does, and this is the only artist I have that I can see when I'm like, it's got to be a Bruegel, because they all have something in common. All right, I've got some smaller ones. So take a look at these. I'm gonna pass here. I'm gonna start. Why don't we make them all go this way? But I'm gonna start one with you. I'm gonna start one with you, and I'm gonna start one with you. And then they can all spin this direction. While I look up the two in this book that I want to show you. And also you can, when you're not holding one, you can look at the ones in the book here. If you think you know what Bruegel likes, don't say it. Just keep it to yourself. And then I will hold them up in front of the camera. I can pass on for you too. 20. When the original one that you had comes back to you, let me know. Okay. Here is Bruegel's Adoration of the Kings, the Three Kings. Can you see? Is it bright enough? I feel like we'd know what this is. I mean, what event is being portrayed there if we saw this. All right. And, oh, excuse me, Elliot. This is called The Census in Bethlehem. And I believe, right here, this is Mary on the donkey. So this is them heading towards Bethlehem because they all have to be counted by the Romans because Romans want their money. All right. Have all the little ones made their way around?
Yeah.
Okay, let me gather those. For those that, this one is called Children's Games. We have, take both of these. Hunters in the Snow. And Peasant Wedding Feast. What does Bruegel like? What does he like to put in his pictures? Lots of people. It's like Where's Waldo sometimes. It's just, do people still read those? I mean, there's just stuff going on all over the place. I particularly like this one. I like, right here there's this boy in a red coat and he's grabbing his mom's hand and his mom's turning around because he obviously just doesn't want to stand in line anymore. And I can just, it's just very real, right? I could picture this in a grocery store line today. Like, Mom, like, stow it, Johnny. We got to stand here in line just a little bit longer. I can just picture it. We got people in the background. I don't know. They appear to be having a snowball fight. There's dogs. There's people pushing things across the icy pond in the background. You could sit with a magnifying glass and stare at this picture for an hour and keep finding stuff. It's great. The Adoration of the Magi, it's got its own interesting stuff going on. Like this guy up here, he's whispering something in somebody's ear. What? What's he whispering? Like, these people are pretty low class. I don't know. Should we be giving? Why are they bringing him these nice presents? They're nobodies. We just get to imagine. All these people in the corner. I want to see what's going on. It's just very entertaining. This is Peter Bruegel. What else? This is true of every single one, really, except Hunters in the Snow. Let me put this here. What else do they have in common? Mm-hmm.
I feel like they all have like a lot of red.
Reds and browns and what would we call them? Just fall colors, warm colors. Lots of them. So if you see a painting with lots of reds and browns, with people everywhere, it's probably Bruegel. He was just intensely interested in the details, and just very everyday looking. And the donkey appears just eating. Like he doesn't care. Look at all these people barging in. Maybe he doesn't like all these people barging in. All right, this is a Flemish artist, working at the same time as all these other artists we've been looking at in the Northern Europe, but it just seems really different to me. It just has a very different style, very much not the polished, the beautiful angels of Raphael, and it's just very gritty and everyday life. So be on your lookout for Peter Bruegel. All right, let us take a look today. Go ahead and get your questions out. Let's take a look at the Reformation in England. We've already talked about it a little bit. Why they decided not to belong to the Catholic Church anymore. This is the first question I asked you. What was Henry VIII's primary motivation for breaking with the Catholic Church? What's he want, Elliot? I want to get a divorce. And the Catholic Church does not give you divorces. Back then, it was very difficult. It is still quite difficult, but back then it was very difficult. And you might recall that he was married to Catherine, and she had a baby girl named Mary, and she just didn't have any little boys. And in the meantime, Henry met a girl named Anne and would like to marry her. But the Pope wouldn't let him divorce Catherine. Also, it didn't help that Catherine's nephew was Holy Roman Emperor Charles V that we keep meeting. So he said, no, you can't. He said, well, I'm going to anyway. So I will do this myself. Before we move on to that, it was last week. We talked about things that were happening that were making people ask questions about the church, ask questions about God, and if things the church was doing were right. Does anybody remember some of those things that were making them ask questions like that? When they hadn't really been asking questions like that for a long time, yes.
The church was like charging for weddings and funerals.
Okay, yes. Like, charging a lot. In addition to taxes that had to be sent to Rome. And by the way, if you are the king of a country and the people that you rule over are sending just lots of money to another country, you don't like that very much. This was a motive for a lot of them. So yeah, it just seemed to people like all they wanted was money. What else? What might have happened? What happened like 50 years before Martin Luther that made it so that people could learn about new ideas really, really quickly? Printing press. Printing press. Now, when somebody gets an idea or wants to set up an argument, they just print copies and suddenly everybody's read about them. So England was full of thinkers and readers. They had more books. So they were already asking these questions. They knew about Martin Luther. Calvin comes a little later. But like we said, for Henry, I just want a divorce. I don't really care about theology. So when he decided, and let's just do the next question, what did the Act of Supremacy declare? Good.
Henry just like pretty much made him the head of the church.
I am the supreme head of the church. I am now the Pope in England. I decide everything for the church. And he did this. He said this, but if you walked into one of these churches, you wouldn't really notice much of a difference from when it was a Catholic church. They kept everything. Because Henry didn't care about that, right? He just didn't care whether or not they believed certain things or wore certain clothes or had candles or what the liturgy was like. He didn't care. Just wanted his divorce, and he got it. So he set up these churches that we know as the Anglican Church, but it had nothing to do with doctrine. But there's an institution connected with the Catholic Church. Monasteries. This is the next question. Why did Henry decide to dissolve the monasteries in England? By dissolve, I mean shut them down. Turn all the monks out. They're homeless now. Why would he do that? I said he didn't care about theology or doctrine, so it isn't because he doesn't believe people shouldn't be monks.
He wanted the wealth.
They got lots of money. So remember, even though a monk couldn't own anything, the monastery might have a good lot of stuff. People would die and leave their stuff to the monastery, their lands, their possessions, their money. So Henry would really like to get his hands on that. So here's what he did. He had these people called visitors, right? And the visitor comes in and says, okay, you, abbot, all you people in charge of the monastery, I want to see a list of everything you got. I want you to list all the stuff, all silver candlesticks, all the land you own, everything you got in the bank, everything. I want a list. Great. They give him a list. He says, okay, now, y'all need to sign a piece of paper saying that Henry is the head of the church. And of course, almost none of them would, because they're monks. They're in a Catholic monastery. They're not going to leave the church. They're there because they believe this. So the moment they don't sign, he takes their stuff and kicks them out. And just to tell you that sort of the scale. Now, can anybody picture, how big is England? Not too big. In fact, you can picture the island, right? And the northern half is Scotland. The England part, I'm guessing, isn't longer than Illinois, or maybe Illinois is longer. Unclear. Just up to the Scotland border. It's not very big. So remember that when I tell you these stats. In England, the space, which we could roughly, compare to Illinois, they closed 578 monasteries and 130 convents with nuns. So over 700 of these institutions were closed in an area the size of Illinois. Turned out 6,521 monks, 1,560 nuns, and 12,000 more people that were employed by the monastery. What's a job that a monastery might hire someone to do for them? What do you think these employed by the monastery people were doing?
Taking care of the wealth.
Okay,
Sheep and
taking care of the animals that are left, farming the land, construction projects, whatever. So this is a total, if you add all this up, this is close to 20,000 people out of work, and some of them monks. I mean, they went to school for this. What are they going to do? They're not wealthy. They're monks. They're not allowed to own things. Everything the monastery owned jointly has been taken away. They can't afford to travel to France or Spain and go to a monastery there. They've got nothing. And in all of this, it is estimated that Henry made £1 million. Today, that's roughly $2.5 million. But that's $2.5 million then. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of money now. So this was no game. I mean, this was very calculated. And of course, those people that he put out of work, Dorothy Mills tells us this, what happened as a result? Actually, before I read this, let's talk about this. So once he closed down the monasteries, one result we just talked about. What is it? Unemployment. And do you remember, where do these unemployed people go to try to find a job?
Big cities.
Cities, because there's more employers. So they flood the cities. Are there enough jobs for all of them? So now you've got people living on the street, people who have to steal to live. That's what's happening. So this is one of the effects. Did anybody jot down any other effects? What do you got, Elliot?
schools.
The monasteries were running the schools, especially in rural areas. If you wanted your child to learn, that's where they went. They're closed down. Now, eventually, schools, like we think of schools today, are going to start being built, partly because people can see, well, we've got a terrible problem here. The people who live in the country are completely uneducated. The ones who have an aptitude for learning, the ones who might want to become priests or they're not going to become monks in England anymore. They could become an Anglican priest. They still had priests. No schools. What else? What else happened? What else were they lacking? Did you guys find anything else in that paragraph? Oh, let me read the paragraph to you. The effects of the dissolution of the monasteries were felt in countless ways all over England. The numbers of unemployed were increased, we mentioned that, partly because of these monks who were unable to go to other houses of their order abroad, and partly because the new owners of the lands enclosed what the monks had cultivated and raised sheep. It's those enclosures again. Maybe they still could have farmed some land, but no, they can't because the new owners are putting sheep there. A great many schools were closed. There was no provision for the sick and infirm, for the monks had cared for such people. Got no hospitals. The hospital was the monastery. Well, it's gone. Good luck if Uncle Joe, has got pneumonia or something. No doctor for Uncle Joe. He's going to die. No longer was there a door at which anyone, the rich man traveling and overtaken by night, the poor man who needed food and shelter, could knock, knowing that under no circumstances would he be turned away. You're traveling, good luck. If you don't make it to the next city, or you can't afford to stay in an inn, a hotel, you're sleeping outside. Hope robbers don't get after you. Hope it's not cold. All of this was taken away. Did Henry realize all of this? Probably not. He just saw lots of money. He also saw something else. Remind me again, we just said, how many of these monks were willing to sign the paper saying Henry is the head of the church?
No.
Hardly any of them. You're the king. Do you want a large group of people who refuse to obey you in certain things living in your country? No, you don't. They sound like problem number one with rebellion and troublemaking. Got to get rid of them. So he did. He did. So Henry died and his son Edward took over. Edward was 10. Just FYI, Edward was 10 years old. So was Edward really ruling? No, Edward was not ruling. Edward was in the charge of lots of grown-ups who were telling him what to do and doing everything for him. And here's the problem. Remember all those books that are getting passed around? Books that Martin Luther wrote, books that Zwingli wrote, books that friends of Luther wrote, books that Calvin is going to write. And people are reading these books and they're saying, I don't know, these Reformation people, they make a good lot of sense. No, I don't think I like the Catholic Church anymore. As a matter of fact, I don't like this Anglican Church either. This is terrible. They do way too many Catholic-looking things. They need to change more. Here's how Dorothy Mills puts it. The separation of the church in England from Rome brought to the fore all kinds of opinion. People who said, it's terrible, they should go back to the Catholic Church. People that said, oh, they didn't change it nearly enough. During Edward's reign, they put together a prayer book. So if you are Catholic, you're familiar with books of the hours or, the liturgy of the hours, that sort of thing. It was like that, only it was for the Anglican Church. It was set prayers at set hours for set days, and all the churches used them. They didn't want to use the Catholic ones anymore, but they were very much like the Catholic ones. So Cranmer put this together. And this goes along with the Act of Uniformity. What was the Act of Uniformity?
All the priests must use the English.
You have to use the English prayer book. It's not optional. Every single Anglican church in England has to use it, whether you like it or not. Now, this was in 1552. Now, let's hold on to that. I have a reason for giving you that date, but let's move on first. Edward died. Edward was always a little sickly. Somebody asked me on Tuesday, do you think they bumped him off? And I don't think so. I think he was notoriously not very strong. And he just got sick and died. Edward had 2 older sisters. And these were the only heirs left. There's only 3 children that Henry, out of those 6 marriages, these are the only 3 kids he got. And only 1 boy. His eldest sister, Mary, took over. And this is the last question I asked you guys. What happened to England under Mary's rule? Well, what was it like, Elliot? What happened?
It was like unhappy and punished.
Who was unhappy and punished? All the people? What did Mary want to do? She's known, if you've ever heard of Bloody Mary, This is Bloody Mary. Why in the world? You're right. A lot of people are unhappy, Elliot.
She like killed some people.
Oh, she killed some people. Or you don't get Bloody Mary for a nickname for nothing. Why is she killing people? What are they doing that she doesn't like? I'm going to see if you can reason it out, even if you don't remember from the reading. Okay. Mary's mom was Catherine, the original queen that Henry broke with the Catholic Church so he could get a divorce from. Catherine and her little daughter Mary went to France, where they are very, very Catholic, and raised her there. And Mary grew up in Catholic France, brooding on the fact that her dad threw out her mom. And how did her dad throw out her mom? What did he do to get that done? Broke off from the Catholic Church. What's Mary going to do as soon as she comes back? Oh, we're all Catholic now. We're all Catholic now. You better be Catholic. You better be. This is how she got the nickname Bloody Mary. However, I got to tell you, I don't love this. Here's why. She had Cranmer burned at the stake, who made the English prayer book. Latimer and Ridley, the bishops that were put in place under Edward, burnt him at the stake. And this is the way history books usually go. But after she was gone and the next ruler came in, the Protestants killed Catholics. This is the part they skip. I saw a film once. It was like a documentary. It was very cool. It was about, these old manor houses in England. You know, you can visit now. Sometimes the family owns it still and they live in a little wing, but they open it up to visitors and tourists can come in and tour the huge manor house. A bunch of them have little hiding places called priest holes. And if the inspectors, if the local authorities come visit your manor house and you happen to be secretly Catholic, you hide the priest in the priest hole so they don't grab him and kill him. Some of these people had secret doors to chapels, to Catholic chapels, and a priest would come in and say mass for them in their own private chapel. Because they could get killed for it. They could get arrested or killed for it. So I feel like people like Dorothy Mills, this is the story, the way and everything's fine and we're Protestant, and then the Catholic comes in and kills everybody. Like, wow. But the Protestants come in and kill people too. Let's just not ever forget. There's wrongdoing on both sides. We must never forget. However, Mary does get the nickname Bloody Mary for just really brutally cracking down on anybody who's not Catholic. She disbands the prayer book. Also, she did another thing that nobody liked. She married Philip of Spain. Philip's Charles V's son or grandson, I can't remember. Does anybody remember how England and Spain feel about each other in general? It hasn't happened. I mean, we read about it once, but in this chapter it hasn't happened yet. There's going to be a big showdown between England and Spain in 1588. Do you remember that, with ships?
Like the U.S. or like the new land?
Oh, no, it's the Spanish Armada. The Spanish entire fleet came to attack England. This tells you a little bit about their relationship, right? And then England beat them and wiped out the Spanish Armada, and that was kind of the nail in Spain's coffin. Spain, very, 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 very Catholic, and also not very friendly to England. And then Mary marries the guy who's going to be king of Spain. He didn't actually live in England. He married Mary and then went home to Spain. And Mary was just in England all alone. Well, sorry for her. Persecuting, non-Catholics. But Mary died eventually, leaving one sibling, one of the 3 children of Henry VIII, and her name was Elizabeth. Elizabeth ruled for a really, really, really long time, like 50 years. And she was really very smart. So the first thing she did is she gave up the title Supreme Head of the Church. She could see. People don't like that. There's one group of people that doesn't like this whole, the ruler is the supreme head of the church. They don't like it. There's also a lot of Protestants who feel like we're not going far enough the other direction, right? There's pro-Catholics, there's pro-Protestants. I need to do something kind of in the middle, right? So I'm not going to be the supreme head. I'm going to be the governor. I'll be the governor of the church. She wasn't willing to go back to Catholicism because Mary had already terrorized people. She's also not willing to turn it into like what John Calvin turned Geneva into. We're going to shut down all parties and no celebrations or. Somehow I got to please as many people as I can. Why does she want to please as many people as she can?
So they like her.
A, so they like her. What other benefit is there in pleasing people that she rules over? Why do you want the people you rule over to be content?
So they work with you or help you?
Mm-hmm. Help you, and they don't what? They don't rebel. It's just so much easier to rule over a country when people are content with the way things are. And Elizabeth was smart enough to see my brother Edward was pushing it. We got the prayer book, and my sister Mary was pushing it the other direction. We got to calm it down. And that's what she stepped in and did. Now, we're going to talk a lot more about Elizabeth. In fact, the entire last chapter of this book, which we're going to spend 2 weeks reading because it's so long, is all about life under Elizabeth. But let me go back to that 1552. I quoted that date, that prayer book. She finally did draw up a second prayer book, which Elizabeth finally approved of it and sort of the guidelines for the church in 1571. 1571. 1571. Oh, I should have checked the date. It's 1602 or 1604. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, 1620. We'll do the 1620. How long is it between 1570 and 1620? 50 years. That's an easy one. That's easy math. Elizabeth got things settled in 1570-ish. Got the church settled, but not everybody was happy. The Catholics are either in hiding or they've left. But there's a good many Protestants who just don't like this Anglican church with the candles and the incense and the vestments and the altar. We read some books by Calvin and Luther, and we think you ought to do that. And you know what? I'm not going to go to your church. Oh, What did the Act of Uniformity say? Actually said two things. You read one of them. Let's read that again. The Act of Uniformity, requiring every parish priest to use the English prayer book and none other, and requiring all parishioners to attend the services in their parish church on Sundays. Oh, you will go to church, and you will go to that church. And you get a group of people saying, I don't think your church is right. I want to go to your church. It's great. Well, then you're going to go to prison. We're going to arrest you and throw you in jail. Not forever, but enough to wreak havoc on your life, enough to be a problem. Finally, a group of those people who completely wanted to separate from that church, they called themselves separatists. They gave up. They moved to Holland. They said, we're going to move somewhere else. And in Holland, they were just pretty welcoming. They were pretty chill. However you want to worship God, we're good with that. So they lived in Holland for a while. But you know what? Their kids were growing up speaking Dutch. And they were picking up habits from the Dutch that their English parents didn't really like. They said, we got to go somewhere else. And in 1620, they did. Only 50 years after that settlement. Who were those people? Who am I talking about? Who moved to Holland and then decided they needed to move somewhere else? The Pilgrims. And they got on the Mayflower and they came to Massachusetts. This is how close we are in history. Everything leads to something else. Everything in history is connected. It's directly connected to this whole meltdown. You know, Mary persecutes Protestants, and then Elizabeth comes in, but the people on the far other side say, you're not going far enough. We're leaving. In fact, you know, the day they were leaving for Holland, I mean, the captain kind of double-crossed them, the ship that was supposed to take them to Holland. Some of them got arrested. They couldn't leave. So they just unloaded the women and children, and they spent the night on the beach. It was awful. So, and that's where the story of the Pilgrims picks up. Okay, for next week, we are going to read 2 chapters in Dorothy Mills, 15 and 16, because they're really short. And we're going to find out more about the British Isles, namely Scotland. What happened in Scotland related to the Reformation. I alluded to it already once, but you will find out. So do the imitations, 3 of each for a total of 12. Try to follow it construction for construction and word for word. Not word for word ideas, but word for word noun, direct object, this sort of thing. And read 15 and 16. You also finished 2 Towers this week. So I want to spend the rest of our time talking about it. For next week, you're reading the first 4 chapters of The Return of the King. And guys, you know we're finishing The Return of the King this year, right? So reading ahead is fine. If you just get in a mood, if the weather turns bad or whatever, and you just, you know what, I'm not going to do anything this afternoon but lay in my bed and read Return of the King. You can read ahead, but read at least the first 4 chapters, okay? If you read the whole book this week, I don't care. I also am going to give you some information for what is going to be our final paper of the year. Promise. I might give you little imitation exercises, but this is our last paper. And it's not due next week. All I want you to do this week is think of ideas and jot down ideas, all right? It is going to be, since we did the Fellowship of the Ring one, which is sort of an analyzing a book, we're going to do one more of the 5-paragraph persuasive essays. And because maybe you might have misplaced or lost the outline I gave you from the last one, I made out a new one. So you can just take one and pass it to the next person, and there's going to be extras, and you can just lay them somewhere. And on that paper or on a paper somewhere, you should write down what the topic is. Do you need something to write with? Or you got something? Okay. I do not care where you write this as long as you know where to find it. Because this week I'd like you to start preparing a position and an outline. Let me wait for everyone to get ready. Oh, excuse me. Your question is, should Gollum have been killed? You might remember that Bilbo had a lovely chance to kill him when he was invisible, and Gollum didn't even know he was there, and he chose not to. And then Frodo said, "Oh, it's a shame. It's pity Bilbo didn't kill him." And Gandalf said, "It was pity that stayed his hand." And since then, Gollum has not been particularly good. But he doesn't seem to be completely bad. We don't know. We will look at a quote. I'll try to remember to look at a quote today that might help you. If we talk about anything today that might help with this, you can jot it down so you remember it. But your job this week is, as you begin Return of the King, just start coming up with reasons. That's where I'd start. Anything that's a pro or a con, and I'm going to give you a couple of questions to ask yourself. You can write these down too. So we know what would happen if he hadn't gotten killed because he didn't get killed. What would have happened? Exactly what's happened. What would have happened if he had been killed? That's a really good question to ask ourselves. That might give us information. You might start jotting down, what has he done so far that's bad? What has he done that's good? And just start with that. You do not even have to have a complete outline, although if you want to get enough ideas to come up with 3 reasons, pick a side, and you could just you can even use that paper I just gave you. You could write it next to them. That's really the hardest part of the paper anyway, coming up with ideas. If you already know how the books end, you may use this information. If you don't, use the information you have. And also, you will continue to get more information over the next couple of weeks because we're going to keep reading. But this is the final paper we're doing. So that I would advise you not to just forget about this. Oh, it's not due next week, so I don't need to think about it. Don't do that to yourself. Do think about it. Maybe even while you're reading, have a piece of paper next to you. So if you notice something, you can jot down the page number, or you can jot down the event, and you can say, "Oh, I could use that in that paper." All right? But the only thing I'm collecting next week is those imitations. All right? And we will talk about this topic more. But I just wanted you to know in advance so that as you read, you can start mulling it over. Okay. Sorry guys. Where is my... What have I done? Okay, these are your papers. Is there a paper that fell back there? Well, I had questions to talk about in my little guide, but I think I put it in the bedroom. So I think I'll wing it with my flags. Let's talk about Faramir. We meet Faramir at the end of this book. Who is Faramir?
He's like the leader of Gondor and Boromir's brother.
He's Boromir's brother. Okay. So Boromir is his brother that got sent to Rivendell to Imladris, right? Because they had this prophecy or vision or whatever that the Isildur's Bane and the halfling will come. And I want to make sure we understand this. What is the status of their dad? What is their dad's job? Their dad's name is Denethor. We haven't met him yet. You will meet him very quickly in Return of the King. So you said just now, Elliot, he rules Gondor.
No,
What did you say?
leader.
He's the leader of Gondor. So who is their dad? He's a leader. What is his status? Is he the king of Gondor?
Like, who are you talking about?
Their dad, Boromir and Faramir's dad. Because obviously Boromir's not the king. They wouldn't send their king out on a mission. Faramir's obviously not the king because he's out doing military operations, and that would endanger your king. And their dad is still alive, so they wouldn't be king anyway. But what is their dad's job? They refer to him as the steward of Gondor. They've referred to him a little bit. My dad is the steward of Gondor. Boromir says, And do you guys remember back in that council in Rivendell? And Boromir got kind of irritated and uppity when Aragorn stood up and he says, I'm the heir of Elendil. What's going on with that? I feel this is an important plot point that you might miss. What does it mean to be the steward of something, first of all? We talk about stewardship. Sometimes churches talk about good stewardship. Taking care of something. So in Christian circles, often we say we should be good stewards with our money. And why do we call ourselves stewards? Well, because God blessed us with it, right? It's not really mine. Or we should be good stewards with our time. Why? Because it's not my time. God gives me life and God gives me time. So I'm just keeping it. I'm keeping it safe for the person who it really belongs to. Does that make sense? So if you were the steward of a city, what are you doing? Who are you? Are you the king? No, you're not the king. What are you doing?
Kind of like in charge of the military, like protecting the city.
You're protecting the city until the king comes back, right? And as long as there's no king, your family just keeps taking care of the city. Well, you're about to start a book called The Return of the King. Who's the king? Aragorn is the king. Aragorn is the king. So he keeps running around, and everybody freaks out when he says, I'm the heir of Elendil, and I have the sword that was broken. I'm like, what? We thought you all died. They just weren't strong enough to come back and do what needed to be done. They were just living, these rangers in the north, right? They're the lost men from Numenor, this kingdom of men that was in the west, an island that sank into the sea like Atlantis because they rebelled against the Valar, the gods of Middle-earth. And a few of them escaped, and Elendil and Isildur were among them. So Aragorn is very, very old. He's in Rohan. He's like, oh yeah, I remember riding with your dad. Like, what? You don't look old enough for that. Oh, it's because those Numenorean guys live a long time. They're not normal people. So now let's rewind. Why might Boromir get all bristly when Aragorn stands up and says, yeah, I'm the heir of Elendil and I've got the Sword of Isildur? What does this mean for Boromir? Yeah.
His family won't have as much power.
We're not going to be the ones in charge anymore. If the king comes back. Does that make sense to everybody? This is what's at stake. So, Faramir is in the same situation. Now, presumably, usually, as it works, the elder son takes over, right? And in this case, it's Boromir. But Faramir is basically a prince, right? If they were kings, he'd be a prince. And he meets Frodo and Sam over close to Mordor, right? Can everybody picture, there's a map, and you can find maps online. There's a, okay, here is Gondor. And there's a river that runs down, and there's an island, there's Osgiliath, the outpost of Osgiliath that you can hear about. And then across that is this land, and then here's the mountains of Mordor. And I'm sorry, you live in Mordor. It's too bad. He's Mount Doom. He's the volcano. All right. All right, you can be Sauron. All right. And this area across the river from Gondor used to be really nice. Yeah, I mean, it used to be under the charge of Gondor, but Sauron is back and things are getting nasty, and this is not such a good place anymore. We're going to see a scene that shows that it's not a good place anymore. So you don't expect to run into people just hanging out. You don't hang out on the front porch of Mordor for kicks. You don't go for picnics, right, in Mordor's backyard. Did she get trapped in between the doors?
Gus, you're the last one to come in.
I closed the door.
The cat was just laying there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, she just wants in. Okay, it's distracting. I'm sorry. All right. Once she did get trapped in between the doors. It wasn't pretty. Okay, let me think of a question for you to think on. If you were Faramir and you ran into two creatures, you'd never seen creatures like that before. But they're not animals, right? I mean, they're sentient and rational. What would you do and what would you think? This is your question. Will I go see? Yeah. Where are you? Oh, yeah, she brought another dead animal. Yeah, you're amazing. You're so good. You're so good. Eat it. Nala, you're the best hunter ever. You're the best ever.
We used to look at it and try to hunt wolves.
This is like, I just cleaned off an internal organ and I rubbed the blood off the front step before you guys came from one yesterday. She's on a kick. Some sort of small vole-ish creature. All right. She will not eat it until I say, if you have a cat, you're awesome. You chop down. And then by the time we're done here, there will be a bit. The kids and I read this series of books that we really loved, and it was about mice and rats that learned how to talk and think and read and stuff. Anyway, and they referred to it as the green wobbly bit, the part that the cats don't eat. When he left the green wobbly bit. Dude. All right, what do you do if you're Faramir and you are in a very dangerous place, a very evil place, and you run into creatures that you don't recognize what type of creature they are? This isn't a hard question. Come on, guys. Be military leaders. What are you going to do? Oh, hi. Have a good day. Okay, you're laughing, so apparently you don't think that's the right choice. What is the right choice?
Take him prisoner.
Take him prisoner. Which is exactly what Faramir does. Like, you're going to have to come with us. Now, listen to some of the things that Faramir says. I want to just kind of, here's what I'd like to do, guys. We know what sort of person Boromir was. Was he completely evil? My goodness, no. He gave his life trying to protect Merry and Pippin. But was he weak and susceptible to the power of the ring? Yes, he was. Was he always a good decision maker? He wasn't. He wasn't. Remember, maybe you don't remember, when they were going to go through Moria? And the two leaders, so Gandalf says, look, we're going to die on this mountain in the snowstorm. There's another way. And Aragorn is like, I don't want to go that way. Gandalf says, what are you going to do? We're all going to die here. And so they announce, we could go through the mines, and they all basically are willing. They say, oh, I'm a little scared, but they trust. So Boromir says, I won't go unless everyone else in the Fellowship votes for it. And of course they did. Because the rest of them trusted their leaders. But Boromir didn't. Okay, so we know a good deal about Boromir. So, Frodo tells him, he knows about Isildur's, or Faramir says, oh, so you're the halfling. I know about Isildur's bane, and the halfling fourth shall stand. And he says, do you have this thing? Because he doesn't know what Isildur's bane is. Do you know what a bane is, by the way?
Curse.
Yeah, a curse, something that causes trouble or problems or will kill you or harm you, okay? And it did. It was Isildur's bane because it led him to his death, and the ring slipped off his finger and the orcs killed him. He says, where are you hiding it? What is the deal? Do you choose to hide it? No, not because I choose, answered Frodo. It does not belong to me. It does not belong to any mortal, great or small. Though if any could claim it, it would be Aragorn, son of Arathorn, whom I named, the leader of our company from Moria to Rauros. Why so? In other words, why was he the leader? And not Boromir, prince of the city that the sons of Elendil founded. Because Aragorn is descended in direct lineage, father to father, from Isildur, Elendil's son himself, and the sword that he bears is Elendil's sword. A murmur of astonishment ran through all the ring of men. Some cried aloud, the sword of Elendil! The sword of Elendil comes to Minas Tirith! Great tidings! But Faramir's face was unmoved. Maybe, he said. But so great a claim will need to be established, and clear proofs will be required should this Aragorn ever come to Minas Tirith. All right. Stop there. So say that's all we know about Faramir. Oh, yay, the king's come. He's maybe. But if this Aragorn does show up, he's going to have to prove what he says. Now, what might you think? You read that, and what might you think of Faramir? How much is he like his brother, maybe? Not very trusting. And maybe for the same reason as Boromir, right? His family steps down a notch if this Aragorn, supposed king, ever shows up. We might think that. All right. So you go down on the same page, and he asks Frodo, were you a friend of Boromir? And he couldn't help hesitating a little bit. Because remember what happened the very last time Frodo ever saw Boromir? He was running away from him. He said, for my part, I was his friend. Faramir smiled grimly. Then you would grieve to learn that Boromir is dead? I would grieve indeed, said Frodo. Then, catching the look in Faramir's eyes, he faltered. Dead? He said. Do you mean that he is dead, and that you knew it? You have been trying to trap me in words, playing with me? Or are you now trying to snare me with a falsehood? I would not snare even an orc with a falsehood, said Faramir. I wouldn't even lie to an orc. I don't lie. So we learned something else about Faramir. So he quizzes him. Do you remember aught of special mark that the Lord Boromir bore with him among his gear? Why would you ask someone? Why would Faramir ask Frodo? Do you remember anything Boromir used to carry with him? What would be the point? Are they just reminiscing? He just wants like a snapshot? Why would you ask someone? What do you think, Gus?
Kind of like prove that he was with them.
Prove it. If you were really with my brother, you'll know. You'll say something that proves you've seen him. Frodo thought for a moment, fearing some further trap and wondering how this debate would turn in the end. How is Frodo feeling all this time? Remember what happened when he last saw this man's brother. What does Frodo fear?
He's gonna try and kill him.
Yeah. No, there's no one to help me. At least back there, the Fellowship, if I ran through the woods and found Aragorn or something, there's nobody who can help me here. If this guy is just like his brother, if this guy is affected by the ring the way Boromir was affected, there's no hope for me. He had hardly saved the ring from the proud grasp of Boromir, and how he would fare now among so many men, warlike and strong, he did not know. Yet he felt in his heart that Faramir, though he was much like his brother in looks, was a man less self-regarding, both sterner and wiser. I remember that Boromir bore a horn, he said at last. You remember well, and as one who has in truth seen him, said Faramir. So he explains to them that they found the broken horn, and they know that he is dead. Then he starts quizzing him. What's this Isildur's Bane? What is it you have? And then Sam said something like, Master, time's pressing. We need to be getting on. We've got a mission, Because they don't want to discuss what Isildur's Bane is. Faramir takes them aside, and this is what he says. I broke off our speech together, said Faramir, not only because time pressed, as Master Samwise had reminded me, but also because we were drawing near to matters that were better not debated openly before many men. It was for that reason that I turned rather to the matter of my brother, and let be Isildur's Bane. You were not wholly frank with me, Frodo. I told no lies, and of the truth all I could, said Frodo. I do not blame you, said Faramir. You spoke with skill in a hard place, and wisely it seemed to me. But I learned or guessed more from you than your words said. You were not friendly with Boromir, or you did not part in friendship. You and Master Samwise, too, I guess, have some grievance. He says, clearly it is a mighty heirloom of some sort. Do I not hit near the mark? And he does. He does. They fear him. He still doesn't know what it is. But he says, fear no more. I would not take this thing if it lay by the highway, not were Minas Tirith falling in ruin and I alone could save her. So, using the weapon of the Dark Lord for her good and my glory, I do not wish for such triumphs, Frodo, son of Drogo. That's what he says. He doesn't know what it is. But remember, where is the ring right now while they're talking?
His chest.
It's right by him. It's right next to him. It drove Boromir crazy, right next to him. So, what's your impression of Faramir? Is he like his brother? Is he not like his brother?
He's better than his brother in some ways, I guess.
Okay. Better how?
More, like not wanting the ring.
Okay.
Like that, like wiser.
Wiser. First of all, he's got a lot more resistance, right? A lot more strength of resistance. Has he, in these parts that I've read to you, what things, is there anything he said that are wise observations or wise actions?
I mean, he guessed that there was a something.
Okay, he guesses that there's an object. He also discerned that Frodo and Boromir had some sort of issue with each other. How about the way he reacted when Frodo said, "Oh, yeah, the leader of our company, Aragorn, who's a direct descendant of Elendil." How did he react? Did he say, "Oh, great, I hope he comes soon"? Did he say, "That dirty, rotten scoundrel, he's not coming and taking away my place"? He was very moderate. Well, if he comes, we'll have to look into that. You, Frodo, you say, we'll have to look into this. What are you doing here? He's not rash, is he? In fact, he talks right above that, I would not take this thing if it lay by the highway. He says, if it were a thing that gave advantage in battle, I can well believe that Boromir, the proud and fearless, often rash, ever anxious for the victory of Minas Tirith and his own glory therein, might desire such a thing and be allured by it. Oh, he knows exactly, except he just doesn't know quite exactly how much this thing can allure you. Well, Sam blurts it out, as Sam does. It's the enemy's ring. Frodo's like, Sam, you just blew it up. You just told him what it is. Now look here, sir. He turned and faced up to Faramir, this is Sam, with all his courage that he could muster. Don't you go taking advantage of my master because his servants know better than a fool. You've spoken very handsome all along and put me off my guard, talking of elves and all. But handsome is as handsome does, we say. Now's a chance to show your quality. So it seems, said Faramir, slowly and very softly with a strange smile. So that is the answer to all the riddles. The one ring that was thought to have perished from the world. And Boromir tried to take it by force, and you escaped and ran all the way to me. And here in the wild I have you, 2 halflings, and a host of men at my call, and the ring of rings. A pretty stroke of fortune. A chance for Faramir, captain of Gondor, to show his quality. Ha! He stood up very tall and stern, his gray eyes glinting. Frodo and Sam sprang from their stools and set themselves side by side with their backs to the wall, fumbling for their sword hilts. There was a silence, and all the men in the cave stopped talking and looked towards them in wonder. But Faramir sat down again in his chair and began to laugh quietly, and then suddenly became grave again. Alas for Boromir! It was too sore a trial, he said. How you have increased my sorrow, you 2 strange wanderers from a far country, bearing the peril of men. But you are less judges of men than I of halflings. We are truth speakers, we men of Gondor. We boast seldom, and then perform or die in the attempt. Not if I found it on the highway would I take it, I said. Even if I were such a man as to desire this thing, even though I knew not clearly what this thing was when I spoke, I should take these words as a vow and be held by them. Faramir and Boromir, two very different brothers. And the whole history would have been very different of the Fellowship if Faramir had gotten sent on that errand, I suppose. But he didn't. I want you to start The Return of the King, first 4 chapters, and you will meet Dad. And we will find out which son takes more after his dad. The very valorous but rash Boromir, or the steady, not rash, wise Faramir. Any questions? Comments? All right. I'll see you next week. Oh,
Yeah, here's my
oh
paper.
yes, thank you. Does anybody else have a paper for me? I'm so sorry. Thank you. And good job reminding me.